I wanted to do a brief overview of this idea of permission giving thoughts because we talk about them a lot. And I think it's really important to revisit this concept of what they are and why they matter. And so, if you find yourself in a scenario of breaking promises to yourself again and again, it pretty much cannot happen without a permission giving thought happening that leads to that betrayal of self. And so, a permission giving thought is a thought that we have that allows us to betray ourselves, that gives us permission to break an agreement that we had made or a commitment that we had made to ourselves. And so, they can run the gamut. They're very, very rampant, right, in our food choices, where we start out the morning convinced that we're going to stay on our meal plan, and by noon, everything is out the window. I'm stressed, I'm tired, I can't do this. One exception won't make a difference. I'm doing so well, so I have some wiggle room. There are thousands of examples which are really unique to the individual of what those permission giving thoughts would be. The problem is that they are always a lie, almost always a lie. What we're telling ourselves to get ourselves to break that inner promise ends up being pretty disastrous in the result. And so, in order to get really familiar with this and to cut it off at the pass, I think it's really important to, number one, write down what your permission giving thoughts are, to identify each and every one of them. And if you can't do them all at one time, you might notice them when they come up, and you can just jot it down in a note on your phone, on your voice note, a memo, whatever. But how do you know it's a permission giving thought? It's a permission giving thought if it's a thought that you're having that's taking you away from what you had planned for the day. That's your big red flag. Now, the critical part of this is step two, to actually write down what happens when you listen to that permission giving thought. So let's say the permission giving thought is like, oh, I can make one exception here, I'll get right back on track. And then the reality of that for many people is no, one exception leads to more exceptions, and then I no longer have the ability to return to what my intention was. It's going to be different for each person. But I think why it's so important to write them down is because when things are just swirling and around in our head, it's hard to get really clear on, number one, what the thought is, and number two, what the impact of that thought in reality of following it is. And the gift of doing this writing exercise is that then in real time, in real life, the next time you have that permission giving thought, little alarm bells are going to start ringing. Red flags should start going up, where all of a sudden you're not having the thought and just following it impulsively without thinking. You're like, aha, there it is. There's my permission giving thought. And then you have an opportunity to, as I say, when in doubt, play it out, to actually walk yourself through. If I follow this thought, which is leading me in a different direction than an agreement I had made to myself, what actually happens? In all likelihood, how does this play out for me? And then it gives us the opportunity to pivot. And see, this is where the line between permission giving thoughts and self-compassion can get a little fuzzy, because many people follow their permission giving thoughts under the guise of self-compassion. But is it really self-compassionate to binge and get sick and to poison your body and your mind and to ruin your whole day? Is that self-compassion? Right? When we step back, we're like, no, no way. But in the moment, those old ways of coping can feel like self-compassion. And this is, again, why really laying it out pen to paper and getting super clear and really exhaustively listing what all these thoughts are and what the consequences of listening to them are for you is a really powerful, powerful activity to do. And so if you have not done it, I highly, highly recommend it. And I think it would be helpful here, again,